Hi everybody and welcome to this video. My name is Federica and he is Asaf. And today we're going to ask each other and answer some questions about veganism. So we really hope that you're gonna enjoy the video, and we will start by introducing ourselves. So you can start.
Yeah, so I'll keep it short. My name is Asi and I've been vegan for over 9.5 years. I used to live in Israel, that's where I was born and raised. And then, more than a couple of years back, I moved to Czech Republic. That's where I'm living right now, in Prague. And I've been doing activism for over 7 years. And in recent years I was focusing most of my work with Anonymous for the Voiceless.
Alright, my name is Federica, I'm from Italy, I'm 26, but I live in Prague, Czech Republic. I went vegan when I was 14, 12 years ago. It's been 2 years since I started doing activism as well for the animals with Anonymous for the Voiceless. We start with the first question. I'm gonna ask you what struggles did you find in the beginning of your vegan journey, and what struggles do you have right now after 9 years of being vegan?
The struggles that I had initially when going vegan, I think, was about communication with family and friends and colleagues in regards to what veganism actually is. There was a lot of confusion on what actually veganism means, and so I felt a lot of frustration that I couldn't convey that in a way that was coherent enough, and I think that miscommunication caused a lot of conflict. Back then, I communicated veganism as if it's about not consuming animals and not consuming what comes out of them, whereas it's a moral principle that we should live without exploiting them. So this led to a lot of conflicts. I didn't really know how to do outreach, and that's where I was just starting as a vegan. And when I became an activist, then I started to learn how to communicate better. And when I joined Anonymous for the Voiceless is when I managed to communicate best about what veganism actually is. My current struggles with veganism, I don't have any struggle with veganism nowadays, because just to be vegan is not at all order. It's not that difficult to just, choose lentils instead of eggs or soy milk instead of cow milk. It is not that difficult to refrain from going to zoos. It's not difficult from refraining from wearing leather. This is vegan leather, by the way. It's not that difficult. What is difficult is to be active and doing that in a sustainable way, and to get other people active, to do activism in a way that is promoting veganism as the right thing, without getting frustrated from people who are just unreachable and close-minded, and to convince others to go active, which is immensely important, and maybe convincing other people to get active is even more important actually than making someone specific go vegan.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. In my case, I remember when I first went vegan, I didn't have any struggles because I was so sure that I didn't want to participate in this injustice anymore. So for me, the transition when it comes to the diet, for example, was really simple, also because I was lucky enough to have the support of my parents. So what happened was that I saw these videos of animals being exploited and killed, and of course, as a kid, I was really young. I didn't like the idea of being the reason why that was happening, right? So as soon as I communicated that to my parents, they decided to go vegan too. Right now, after 12 years, of course, I don't struggle with being vegan because it's really simple, especially if we compare to how hard it is for the animals to be exploited.
Right.
But at the same time, I struggle with living in a non-vegan society and knowing that many people that I love are still participating in this injustice. They sometimes are not aware, sometimes they are aware but they don't care, and also knowing that even if I'm not part of it, still every single day so many animals are suffering for no reason, for something that is like literally not necessary, and going on during the day knowing that I cannot do a lot for them, I cannot save them, because if I could, I would like save all of them, but it's impossible. So the only way that I have to actually make a difference is to talk about other people about veganism and to be active and, as you said, convince people to speak up for the animals as well. How exactly did you go vegan? Like, what happened?
I have a pretty funny story when it comes to me going vegan. So back in the day, like last decade, Yeri Rovsky came to Israel. And everybody was talking about it. Everybody was posting it on social media. You could hear it in the news. And he was going around doing lectures and stuff. And everybody was talking about, like, Gary. I didn't really pay that much attention to it until I had a dinner with my cousin, who went vegan with her husband. And then she said, if you watch Gary Rovsky's speech on YouTube, I guarantee you, you're gonna go vegan. I was an annoying teenager at the time, so I was thinking, fuck you, I'm gonna watch Gary Rovsky's speech and not go vegan just to spite you. So I went back home, started the video, and an hour later, I was like, damn.
No. I lost.
That bastard, Gary. Now I have to go vegan. I can't fulfill my promise. Gary speaks very coherently, in a very direct manner, about the way that we both say that we respect animals. But at the same time, in contrast to that, we demand their exploitation. We use them for entertainment. We go to zoos. We wear them. We wear their leather, their skin, their feathers. We consume them. We enslave them for their milk, for their meat, for their eggs. And that cannot be considered respectful in any sort of capacity. If someone were to do that to me, I would be considered oppressed. And so I realized I was oppressing animals, and I respect animals, and therefore I saw the contradiction, and I was honest enough with myself to change, and I went vegan overnight.
Yeah. That's very powerful, because we do activism both, and what we notice is that people don't want to acknowledge that they are hypocrites and that they don't want to take the responsibilities when it comes to animal rights. How did you start with activism? What made you start?
My story with activism was, from day one, I was pretty outspoken about veganism with friends and family and colleagues, and I was very, very frustrated by the fact that they just did not get it. Mm-hmm. I tried to convey it as much as I could, and I remember only one friend having enough integrity to go vegan thanks to the post that I made. Everybody else was close-minded, and so I was thinking, screw this, if you guys are not gonna go vegan, then somebody out there needs to go vegan. I don't care who that is. And I got the inspiration to do street activism back in Israel. And I learned actually that once you talk with someone who is a complete stranger, they have a much larger chance to be open-minded and to talk with you frankly. With existing relationships, there is always a constraint. There is always like stress and tension between you. There is an implication of you talking about such a, not a complex topic, but
uncomfortable, like you're afraid that it might ruin your relationship with the friends or family, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is very difficult to hold them accountable for something that they've been doing wrong, and to hear that coming from someone that they love could cause stress, and it could give an inauthentic reaction on their side. And also on my side, you know, because I care for them, and I love them, then obviously the stakes are higher for me. So I would be more emotional, more angry, rightfully so. But still, with strangers, they are just more open to just say whatever they want to another stranger because you're never going to see them again. Yeah. And on my side, I can be more open to experiment and to do outreach that is more direct and more assertive.
Yeah, that's great. In my case, I was vegan for 9 years, and I did not really care about what other people were doing. I remember with my parents, I did not even ask them to go vegan. I just shared with them the videos that I saw, and they understood without even me asking them to make the change. But then what happened is that, okay, I spent 9 years as a vegan, like not looking at into other people's plates or values, let's say, until the day I started writing my bachelor thesis for university, which was about the difference between animal welfare and in the packagings of the animal products, the way that they put happy animals, or they make like animal welfare certified, but at the same time what happens into the farms is the opposite, of course. And so I had to go back to those videos that I watched 9 years back, and seeing them again made me feel like I needed to do something more. Being vegan was not enough. And thank God my dad was already doing activism with Anonymous for the Voiceless. He already told me in the past, like, I think you should join, I think you would be a good activist. But I was always coming up with some excuse. I was telling him, like, I think I don't have time, or I think I'm not good enough. But then I finally decided to make that step. And I looked on Facebook for the chapter of Prague of Anonymous for the Voiceless. I joined the group and I went for the Cube of Truth. I will be honest, I was very scared. I didn't know what to do. I think I was not prepared. I think I was not good enough. And that's okay. Like, when you go through a new experience, you can expect that. But then when I started, it all like immediately felt like the right thing to do. And then from that day on, I was going to the Cubes of Truth every single week, and it made my life much better, because I also met people. Activism became a really big part of my life.
I would want to ask you why you choose to be an Anonymous for the Voiceless in particular, and not in any other organization.
I like Anonymous for the Voiceless because of their abolitionist stance, because they don't want to go into compromises when it comes to animal exploitation, and also because they are the only animal rights organization that is truly focusing on animal rights. They're not talking about health, they're not talking about environment, but they're really straight to the vegan message. And what I really like about them is also that they give you a structure, they teach you how to do outreach properly, so you never feel lost. You always have a guideline, a flow chart to follow. There is a huge community of people who are working with Anonymous for the Voiceless, and another good thing is that the founder, Paul Bashir, together with Asal, they are so nice and kind. They are always open to improve the way we talk to people. So you don't feel like you are working for an employee, but you feel like you're cooperating with, even with the founders. And it's a work in progress, and we are always trying to do the best for the animals. And I also like about them that you can find them basically in every city in the world. You always know that if there is a AV chapter in a city, you're gonna find some friends, some like-minded people. Being friends with people who think the same way as you is a blessing, in my opinion, after many years of being the only vegan in a group.
Federica, so can you say how the Cube of Truth operates?
We have different roles, let's say. There are the cubers, who are the people who stand in the cube. They wear a mask, which is a symbol of the fight against oppression. And they're holding screens, usually TVs or laptops. In the screens we are showing the standard practices of animal exploitations, all the ways that humans exploit other animals for meat, dairy, eggs, fur, etc. So we basically show people the truth of what's behind the animal products. And then we have music in the background to catch people's attention, and there is another group of people who are doing outreach, which means that as soon as somebody is interested in what we are doing and they stop for a few seconds to watch the videos, for example, we go to them and we start outreach conversation. We ask them how do they feel about the videos they're watching, how do they feel about humans exploiting other animals. And usually people say that it's terrible, it's very cruel, that they've never seen those videos before. So we ask them, do you think we should respect other animals? And of course everybody agrees with that, because we all want to respect other animals. And then here's the important point of the outreach flowchart, which is, you think it's possible to respect them while consuming their flesh, breast milk or eggs, which means while exploiting them at the same time. That's of course a contradiction, that's of course hypocrisy, and people who realize it will tell you of course not. And here is the part when people start coming up with excuses. So they tell you, yeah, but we have been doing this for a long time, but what about proteins, but what about sustainability of the plant-based diet? So You can of course address those excuses, but the best thing is to always put the people, the non-vegans, in the victim's position and ask them, okay, so if you were in a slaughterhouse, would you find that excuse acceptable? Of course no excuse would be acceptable when it comes to exploiting another creature who does not want to die, who did not agree with being exploited, and who would just want to be free and liberated. And then we ask them if they know the definition of veganism, because there is a lot of confusion around it. So it's not a diet, it's not a lifestyle. Veganism is a moral principle that we should respect animals and not exploiting them. And then we ask them, so is there anything that stops you from going vegan so that you will no longer be responsible for animal exploitation? And here they can say, I'm gonna think about it, I'm gonna eventually do it. And here's a point where we ask them, if you were in the victim's position, how quickly would you like people to go vegan? How quickly would you like people to change? And of course, that's immediately. So in that point, we ask them, so from now on, how many animals should be exploited for you from today on in your life? Is the answer 0 or more? If people tell you 0, then you ask them, so you're vegan from now, and you can shake their hands. In these conversations we have core principles, which are of course putting the non-vegan in the victim's position. The second one is to hold them accountable for what they buy, what they do every single day against the animals, and to let them understand that if the animals are being oppressed, it's because of them, and they are paying for it, they're responsible for it. And the third principle is a call to action. So we are not on the cube, we are not on the streets just to share informations, because you can find them online everywhere. We are there because we want people to change immediately, because they have to understand the urgency of the issue, and they have to understand that if they don't change immediately, the animals are still going to be exploited every single day, and they will never find a liberation. So of course, this is the ideal conversation, but it doesn't happen all the time. We are not trying to reach everybody, because not everybody is reachable. There are many cultural and social pressures when it comes to veganism. So some people are more close-minded than others, but we are there to reach that 1% or 10% of people, 1 out of 10, who is ready to understand, and that's really powerful. So what I would tell to new activists is not to be discouraged by failed conversation, because you cannot reach everybody, and that's not the point of AV. The point of AV is finding those people who are just waiting for that conversation to change, because there is a domino effect, right? I tell you today you're go vegan, and that person is gonna convince somebody else, and that's the way that the world is gonna change eventually. That's the way it has been happening since the beginning of our history, right? Every big revolution started from a small group of people who realized that there was a problem, and then the voice spread, and eventually we made a change when it comes to slavery, for example, or any other injustice we were facing. And so that's how it works. In my opinion, it's really effective, because it goes straight to the point. You don't have to be liked, you just need to do the work for the animals, and if people are reachable and they understand, they're gonna thank you for that, for being honest and for speaking up for the animals the way that the animals need to be spoken for.
Okay. I do have one question for you. There are some people who see the work of Anonymous for the Voiceless and they would want to be helping animals, but because the conversations in AV can be a bit daunting for people, then what would you say to these people who haven't done outreach in AV's methods before, or new to Anonymous for the Voiceless?
Yeah, that was my case when I started. I was really scared. I didn't know how to do it. So my recommendations would be to shadow other activists and listen to their conversations. But also what I do is I watch many videos of Paul Bashir's workshops, where he is going through all the rules from AV. And then I learn from him. I also learn from many other vegan content creators online, so I keep getting inspired by them. And I practice. Usually in Prague, for example, with our group, we host workshops and we do role play, which means that we are pretending to be non-vegan and we try to outreach each other. So this way you are learning the best way for you, how it works better for you. And you learn how to do outreach properly. So it takes time, it takes practice. It's not really hard. You just need to memorize a flowchart, and then when you are in a cube of 3 hours, 4 hours, you keep repeating the same thing. So I think at some point you're gonna get very comfortable with a flowchart, and it gets really natural because you know what to say and you know what to expect from people. So you also learn how to react when it comes to trolls or not reachable people, so you can easily, when you see that a person after 3 excuses keeps throwing at you bullshit, you can just walk away. And that's a really powerful thing to do, because you tell them that basically you don't have time to waste with such like poor excuses. So I think practice makes perfect. We don't need to look for perfection, because me myself, sometimes I find myself at the cubes and I realize that maybe I didn't do my best in a conversation. But one important thing is that if you find a reachable person, they will understand even if you're not perfect, because whatever you say, even if you're not using the perfect phrasing, is still gonna hit them if you hold them accountable, you put them in a victim's position, and you call them to the action of being vegan. So you don't need to be perfect, but you have a guideline to follow. So I think that's the perfect combination.
What if someone is not into outreach? Will they still have value in Anonymous for the Voiceless?
Absolutely, yes. If you stand in the cube, for example, you allow us, or you allow people who want to do outreach to do that, because think about it, if you were not there, we would have to stand in the cube, and that would mean that we will lose many people who might be open and reachable. Also, you can be photographing, you can make videos which are really powerful. You can just come to the cubes and with a camera, or we can give you ours, and you can record our conversations and you can help us sharing them online, which is very important and powerful. So if you don't want to talk to people, we understand, of course. I think by the time you will want to, because when you're at the cube, in my case, for example, in the beginning when I was just standing in the cube, I was looking at people's faces, and at some point I really had the urge, the need to go out and speak and talk to them. But if you don't feel like, of course, you can just do photographing or videos, and that's perfectly fine. That's, of course, a work for the animals and really helps.
So I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
In the animal rights movement, there is a very big push, not for animal liberation, as in to call for people to go vegan, but for animal welfare, as in we should have bigger cages and animals should live like in better conditions, so to speak. So what is your take on this?
Yeah, I believe that the goal of vegan activists is animal liberation. In a dream world, it would be the best if we could just fight for their liberation and get it. But we have to be realistic. Only like the 1 or 2% of the population is vegan, and a lot of people are demanding animal products, and if the industry is producing them, it's because there is a demand, right? So I think it's impossible for the world to go vegan overnight, and for governments to make such a big change and completely cut the animal production. I can see a change in the past 10 years when it comes to animal rights. So of course, as a vegan activist, when I go on the streets, I fight for animal liberation and I have an abolitionist stance. But when it comes to like the steps that the world has to go through, I don't see it possible for the world to go like to change that drastically. When we can have better conditions for the animals is better, because at least we give them some dignity. That's not a solution, it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do, but that's like a step moving forward to the main goal, which in my opinion cannot happen overnight. That's my opinion. What do you think about it?
I would actually not agree with you in this regard. I actually think that by promoting welfareism, by promoting bigger cages, we are kind of implying that the exploitation of animals in and of itself is not problematic. It's just the way that it's being done is a problem. And so if you give animals bigger cages, then they are okay to be exploited. And when someone who is non-vegan hears from a vegan, hey, would you want to sign a petition so that animals get better conditions? What he hears is exploiting animals is okay. There is an okay way to do this. And kind of like we are working against ourselves, because then once we try to talk to that person and tell them like, well, actually you should go vegan, you shouldn't just buy like free range or what have you, then they'll be responding with, well, they should just have better conditions for the animals. So we are kind of like working against ourselves, And to have the majority of the focus of animal rights being around welfare instead of their liberation, I do think that it is counterproductive, actually. Now, I think there are ways to work incrementally for animal liberation in a way that does not promote animal welfare. So, for example, you could run single-issue campaigns. So, for example, with banning fur, or banning circuses, or banning SeaWorld, for example. All of these examples are not gonna be promoting animal welfare. The message would be very clear. It is exploiting animals is wrong. And that way, when people hear like, well, we should close down circuses, they'll be like, yeah, animals are not objects, they're individuals. I think that is a better approach, rather than saying, well, yeah, we just need to have animals live in bigger cages, or we just need to kill them in a way that is not as violent. Mm-hmm. So I do think there are better ways to promote a vegan world incrementally, but it should not be done with welfarism at all. And you know what? I even have a conspiracy theory in regards to animal welfare. So the biggest animal rights organizations, the ones that get the most funding, happen to be the ones that promote animal welfare. Bigger cages, free range, humane slaughter, whatever that means, etc. And now the people who fund them are not vegan. The majority of the funding that they get, my conspiracy theory is that because welfarism promotes an okay version of exploitation, then I wouldn't think that it's unthinkable that it is actually the meat industry giving donations to these organizations. And the reason why they would do that is because A, it's promoting a message of there is an okay way to be exploiting animals, and B, by donating to these organizations, they can control them. Because if they give any vegan message, they'll just say, yeah, we're gonna cut your funding. And animal rights organizations will not like that. So they will keep promoting welfarism instead of telling people, yeah, respect animals, go vegan.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't mean that I would ever promote welfarism. What I meant is that there is a change in the world happening. People like welfarism just because it makes them feel better. It makes them feel like they are being kind to the animals, and that's not the case. My hope is that one day we will get to the point where the demand of animal products will not be that huge as it is today, and we will have, of course, every farm or slaughterhouse will close eventually.
But still, 20 years ago and today, they're still being exploited, and you could say they're exploited in bigger numbers because there's a bigger population that is funding their exploitation. So have things really changed in regards to animal welfare?
I only see that more people are going vegan than it was before. And I don't know if all of the campaigns about welfarism are being found by the meat industry, but maybe there are vegans who think that that's the correct way.
Okay.
I don't know what to say about that, honestly. Like, it's such a complicated topic. You can take a stance against it, but then you never know the way the world is gonna be vegan and the animals are gonna be liberated one day.
So maybe we can discuss that, how we can actually reach a vegan world.
Sure.
So in your view, how would that change occur?
Well, in my view, the work that vegan activists are doing is the most important thing and powerful weapon we have, because if animals are still exploited, it's because there is again a market behind it. So the more we talk to consumers, the more we decrease the amount of animal products being sold. So I just see it as a gradual change, and hopefully one day we will reach a point where the demand of plant-based products is gonna be big enough to substitute, let's say, the animal-based products.
I see it slightly different. I think that the way that we'd come to a vegan world is by not targeting the majority of the people, but actually by targeting the minority. My point of view is that most people are just conformist. So most people will rather choose to do the easy thing, which is to be exploiting animals and get socially validated for it, rather than doing the right thing, which is going vegan and not exploiting animals. leaving them alone. But there is a minority of people who can act and think independently. And these people do not care for social validation, and so these people will go vegan despite all of their surrounding being wrong and telling them that they are wrong. So if we can target the minority, I don't know how much that is, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, once we kind of snowball into that, then after that we won't be able to be ignored, because then the majority will follow. The conformists will follow that 5 or 10%. And then we will make the switch. It won't be a consumerism struggle. In my opinion, we can't see it as demand versus supply. It should be a social justice issue, and this is how we should treat it. We need to get enough people to go vegan and to make that snowball so that the mentality of the masses will change from animals are here for us to be exploited into animals are here with us, we're just going to leave them alone. And the only way to do that is to go vegan, to not exploit them for, to wear them or to consume them or what comes out of their body, not to use them for entertainment or any purpose. We'll just leave them alone. What we're struggling against is not a demand versus supply issue, in my opinion. It is a sense of entitlement of society thinking that animals are here for us to use and exploit.
Yeah, but at the same time, what I meant is that the day that the plant-based products are going to be available everywhere, more affordable, then people will not have the excuse that they are used to buy animal products, that they are cheaper anymore, because it's going to be so common that then making the change is going to be even easier for people. Because again, the activists are going to find that 5% of the population, we're going to be stronger, and then from that base, people are going to look at us and see that we are doing the right thing, and they will be more inclined to follow us. And yeah, but at the same time, there has to be a change, I think, in the market as well. Because right now, I think we are being perceived as a really small niche. And again, people don't like niches. So if we make it more normal for everybody in the world, then people are going to understand that we are not the weirdos and that there is a way to do things different.
Right.
I think it's like those things have to work together. Everything is going to work together for that.
So you're saying we should increase the supply of plant-based options too, in order to create a vegan world, to make it more accessible? Yeah?
It's not about accessibility. I think it's more about mentality, as you said. If people think and see the products the same, like with the same frequency, and they see them as affordable, as normal, as healthy, as tasty as animal products, then they would have no excuse anymore not to make a change. And they would think, like, if we make plant-based and veganism the new normality when it comes to every aspect of it, then people are going to be more open to understand our points. Because now I think we live in a very strong carnist society, right? Where like the consumption of animal products is so strongly connected to our traditions, our cultures, that people don't make the change also because even if they agree with the principles of veganism, they still see it as a very, very small niche thing. So the more we normalize it, I think the more people are going to be open to it. At the same time, we have the work of the activists, we have the work of the social media vegan promoters who are like spreading informations. So I think everything's going to work in cooperation, and that's the way. And as you said, like as soon as we have the 5% of the population being vegan, then it's going to be much easier, hopefully, to attract all the conformist people who just want to be socially validated.
Yeah, I will just add on to that. I think a lot of people think that if there would be enough plant-based option on the market, then people will automatically make the switch. With the assumption that if there is an alternative between choosing a product that doesn't exploit animals and a product that does, and they both taste and cost the same, then they will naturally pick the plant-based option. But coming from Israel, where now vegan food, plant-based food is ubiquitous, it's all over the place, and you can't say it's not affordable, and you can't say that there aren't enough options to appease everybody, still veganism is not talked about. As in, the justice for animals aspect, to respect animals and to not exploit them, it is not a topic anymore in Israel. It's just the case that everybody is just open to plant-based food. They're just seeing, let's imagine there is a table, right? And there is a meat patty, and there is a Beyond Burger. So what the vegan would see, is a product of exploitation, so they will never think to commit an injustice and take the meat patty, and they will see a food, which is the Beyond Burger. What a meat eater will see now is a meat patty and a Beyond Burger, and he'll be like, oh, okay, cool, there's two options that I can choose from. They don't see it as a moral imperative to go vegan. They don't see it as a moral imperative to respect animals. And this has to be conveyed. We are focusing way too much about how to go vegan and providing people with accessibility of plant-based food, and not enough about why they should be respecting animals. And the way to do that would be to talk directly about it and to address the injustice and talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah, but I said that the work has to be done together. Of course, the core of the movement has to be the vegan activism. And that is just like the surrounding that has to change accordingly. But again, like the main way to have animal liberation, to have a vegan world, starts with holding people accountable and with doing activism on the street. Then my suggestion was just like about how it's gonna actually happen, a shift also in the market, also on the products we see. And hopefully that shift is just gonna be like a mirror of the way that people perceive animals and not just the way of convenience or preferences.
Right. It should be a mix, but the majority of activism should be about pushing the idea of justice for animals.
Yeah.
And a slight portion of it should be about making a change in the plant-based market, but it shouldn't constitute as the biggest part of it. We can't conflate veganism with plant-based eating. It is not the same. Plant-based eating is just an application of veganism. Veganism is the moral principle, and plant-based eating is to not exploit animals for food.
Yeah,
but there are
sure.
still way other ways that animals are being exploited, and what we need to tackle is the sense of entitlement that humans can exploit and oppress animals.
What would you recommend to people who don't know how to start? So let's assume that you meet a non-vegan, that then you hold them accountable, you show them what happens to the animals, they understand, they commit to go vegan and to stop abusing animals. And then what would, if like they have some concerns about, I don't know, how to deal with it, what would you say?
I think nowadays, with the availability of the internet, they can Google this, they can use ChatGPT. There are plenty of online challenges that you can take on and have a community that supports you. There are Facebook groups, there are tips, recipes, blogs, YouTube channels. The how to go vegan is very, very simple. What people need to keep in mind is that if you want to respect animals, you have to be vegan. You have to not be exploiting them. You have to go on a plant-based diet, and you have to find ways to wear clothing without exploiting animals. You have to find entertainment sources that do not require animal exploitation. There is too much focus, I think, on how to go vegan. You can just look this up. It's really not that complicated. Surely you have like some vegan friends you can just ask. Millions have done this. We shouldn't be pretending that going vegan is such a difficult task. Really, it's not. The way that somebody goes to the supermarket and buy all their groceries is exactly the same that I do that. I just go for the plant-based options. It's not so difficult. It may seem inconvenient sometimes, but as long as you keep in mind that you do not want to be the reason why victims are being oppressed, then it becomes very easy.
I ask you this question because of course I know that it's not difficult, but people think it is. So by saying what you just said, then people are just going to understand it. This is not what I think, is what people think, that it's difficult, that it's hard. And they think that because they don't put themselves in the victim position. Because what I always tell to people is that even if I had to eat lentils and potatoes for my whole life, I would still be okay with it. But thank God it's not the case, right? Because we can enjoy food with no problems. And as you said, it's like there's literally zero difficulties when it comes to being vegan.
Yeah, but what would your response be to people who want to understand how to go vegan?
Yeah, just look it up. As a vegan activism, I'm there just to tell them why they should make a change. Especially if they understood why they should be vegan, then the action just follow, right? If you have a strong motivation to do anything, then you just act accordingly without even having to do that much of an effort, because you want to do it so badly. You don't want to be responsible for animal exploitation anymore so much that you will find a way. You will always find a way.
Where there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What would you tell to vegan people who are not active?
So, someone who has gone vegan shouldn't think that they're doing a favor to animals. It's not enough to not be exploiting them. What I'm trying to convey is that there is a moral imperative to be speaking up for the victims. And the reason for that is, A, the number of victims is in the billions every year. It's just unfathomable. B, the oppressors are the majority of humankind. So think your friends and colleagues and family. They are all the reasons why animals are being oppressed. And so your fellow humans are the reason why animals are suffering right now. You have a moral duty to speak up for them. So imagine a hypothetical in which there is a dog who is being hit by a stick by a guy. And so you have three options there, really. If you go and beat that dog, the dog is going to die, obviously, and you're going to be accountable for him dying. This is what non-vegans do. They are the reason why animals are being oppressed. What a non-active vegan does, he sees the dog and he just says, I'm not going to be the reason why this dog is going to be oppressed. He just walks away, but the dog still dies. The third option, and that is the only option that saves the dog, is to intervene, is to go and stop that man from beating the dog. That is vegan activism. That is speaking up for the animals. That's the only way to save the dog that is being beat. And so we have a moral duty, also because the animals cannot speak up for themselves. So who is going to speak up for them? They cannot do it.
If not vegans, who else?
If not vegans, who else? Exactly. And if all of your fellow humans are not internalizing that they are in fact not respecting animals, then it is your moral duty to let them know and to hold them accountable. And people will hear that and they will internalize that and they will understand like you have. Because if you've done that change, then other people can too. It's not going to be everyone. The majority of people are not going to listen, yes. But there is a minority that is going to listen. And thanks to your efforts, somebody is going to go vegan. And then that is the only way that you would be actually saving animals. That is the only way that you would be doing animals a favor. Because you would be standing up against an injustice and you will be doing the right thing. You will be doing the only moral right thing by standing up for the victims who are not able to stand up for themselves.
Yeah. So as we always say with Anonymous for the Voiceless, the way we do activism, it's simply by being the voice of the animals and also speaking up for them the same way we would like to be spoken for if we were in the victim's position. After many years of activism, I realized that the only regret I have as a vegan is that I didn't go vegan sooner. You might think it's a weird thing to say because I went vegan when I was really young, but at the same time I know that for 12 years of my life I was contributing to the worst injustice we are facing on this planet. So when I think of myself as a person who will open the eyes of somebody else, I see the power I have. Because when I remember the person who made me vegan, who sent me those videos I was talking about before, I was so grateful to that person. Because she made me come out of being of the group of people who are on the wrong side of the history, right? So knowing that I can be that person who is gonna change the life of somebody else in better, and you can imagine how many people were thanking me for changing their life and for allowing them to not be part of an injustice anymore, and that's a really powerful thing. So being active for the animals, of course, is saving them, but you're also doing it for others because you give them the opportunity to know that they are wrong and that they can do something aligned with their values, right? Because most of the people don't know, or if they know, they're not being held accountable. So you can be that person who holds people accountable. How did your approach on vegan activism change?
I would say that in the beginning I was actually quite naive. I thought that because a lot of people were antagonistic toward vegans, this means that if we would be nice to non-vegans, then they will get it. Because we'll be friendly, and once you have that common ground, then they will be open to change. I saw that in actual fact that is not the true. They just want validation from us, they just want to feel good, and they don't want to be held accountable. I'm not saying that you need to be necessarily rude to non-vegans. What I'm saying is that you need to be direct. You need to place an abolitionist stance about veganism and animal liberation. And you need to convey that in a way that holds them accountable. I used to actually upload videos where I was actually talking very nicely with people. And there was even a post I made of, be the vegan activist that you want to have met before you went vegan. And I actually don't stand by that anymore. What I would say instead is, be the vegan activist that you would need to meet before you became vegan. And more importantly, be the vegan activist that the animals needed to be before you became vegan. I think we should always keep in mind we shouldn't be pandering to non-vegans. We shouldn't be listening to their excuses and the way that they tell us how to do activism. What we should be focusing on is to make sure that we hold people accountable instead, and that we convey a very direct and clear message. Can you answer why vegans in either Tel Aviv or Jerusalem should open a chapter there?
Oh, that's a really big question. I think they should do it because there should be a chapter in every city, and especially for the population who have been oppressed, they should be more open to speak up for the ones who are now oppressed, because they can understand better how it feels to be exploited. Yeah, what would you answer to that question?
So there is currently no chapter of Anonymous for the Voiceless, neither in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the two biggest cities in Israel, and we have been oppressed as people for the longest time, both in history and now. And so Israelis, you can say a lot about them, but they're not apathetic. We should capitalize on the opportunity to speak up for the animals, and we know that people will interact with this. We know people are going to be open to be talking about oppression once they have experienced oppression themselves. And Anonymous for the Voiceless would be a great way to do that, because currently I think what we lack in Israel is people who are bringing forth a very coherent message about vegetarianism is not enough, reducing is not enough, the only thing that is acceptable is the liberation of animals. And currently there is no organization that is saying that loud and clear. And once we have Anonymous for the Voiceless in both of these cities, once we have Anonymous for the Voiceless in Israel, we can push the narrative that veganism is not a diet, it's not a lifestyle, it's not an identity, it's a moral principle, it's an ethical principle, and this will elevate every other organization. It will put the focus on the victims, and it won't put the focus on humans. Anonymous for the Voiceless doesn't talk about health, we don't talk about environment. We don't need to be pandering to non-vegans, and that is exactly what Anonymous for the Voiceless does. Also, once there are a lot of people who are doing this in major cities, then the conversations can be recorded and uploaded to Israel. So you can have tons and tons of outreach conversation in Hebrew, and they can go extremely viral very quickly with very minimal funding. It is absolute of the essence that there will be a chapter in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. Make that happen, people in Israel.
So the video ends here. We really hope you liked it, and we wait for your comments. Of course, if you have something to add or to say about it. We ask you to subscribe to this channel and also to follow us on Instagram and other social media platforms, because we keep sharing our vegan activism outreach conversations with people. I think that might be interesting, and if you want to be active, of course you can ask us, or we are going to link in the description the website of Anonymous for the Voiceless, so you can join them too. And do you have something else to say?
You can find me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, on Teboni. It's going to be in the description below. And how can we find you?
Yeah, I am the vegan ballerina on YouTube and Federica Bona on Instagram. I'm gonna link also my social media down in the description box, so you can find us there. We thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon in another video, I guess. Let's do this.
Wait.
No, it's my... Wait, obviously like this. But I think it's gonna be upside down.
Why do you mean upside down? Oh, maybe we should put it like...
But you're covering your face.
Oh, shit.
Alright, next question. Hi everybody, and welcome back to this channel. What channel? Again.